Welcome to Behind the Mask in Conversation with. Behind the Mask is a neurodivergent focused podcast that aims to offer support, knowledge, understanding, and most importantly, exposure to the neurodivergent community. If you are here, firstly, I hope you enjoy the episode. And lastly, if you are enjoying it, please like, follow, share, and subscribe because your support with this podcast can really help us push the message out. Keep being amazing all, and thank you.
Okay, so for people who are watching the podcast, this is Behind the Mask. It's the Neurodivergent podcast made by neurodivergent people for neurodivergent people. And the main aim of the podcast is to raise visibility, awareness, understanding, and a sense of community for all people that are neurodivergent. So today's episode, I'm thrilled to be joined by Molly Brooksridge. Hello.
Hiya.
Welcome. So I am chuffed to have this because you are somebody from the other one on the gram who I saw grow beautifully organically, just putting your authentic self forward and your journey. And then earlier this year we saw your face pop up on the TV, and it was not this morning. What's the one before it? Good Morning Britain or something like that.
Yeah, Good Morning Britain. Yeah.
Fighting the fight for medication, and I saw it. I was like, I need to have a chat with that girl at some point. Like, she's awesome. So yeah, thank you for agreeing to take part in the podcast.
It's a pleasure. I'm honoured to be on your podcast. I've been watching it since you've been doing it. You've had some incredible people on here, so I'm definitely honoured to be on here.
The pleasure's all mine. Pleasure is all mine. So for anybody watching that isn't familiar with you, or for anyone listening who may not be familiar with you, who's Molly? Tell us about Molly.
So I was diagnosed with ADHD at 21 years old, so that's like 5 years ago now. But after the diagnosis, I was hit with like grief. You know, it was a bad time, but I kind of knew that there was something more than just ADHD. After taking my medication, the autistic side of me just, you know, it came full pelt. It took control. So then I was diagnosed as autistic at 23. So I just started my journey on like just documenting my diagnosis. And I never ever done it to grow a platform. I was never one that wanted to be Zoella, the next Zoella. I never wanted to do any of that.
You just showed your age there by saying Zoella. I had to go, who's her? But I know it is. You're a spring chicken compared to us oldies.
No, yeah, she's like a popular YouTuber. I grew up watching her, and I never wanted to do anything like that. It was just I wanted to, I don't know, reach out to people like me and just tell them that they're not alone, because I grew up with no friends, so I wanted to be that friend that I never had growing up to other people. That was just like my main goal. Yeah.
And how have you found that? Because I think so many of us find ourselves on these social platforms just trying to connect and trying to find people that are like the authentic us, because for so many years we've put a version of ourselves forward to try and replicate what others do. So then when you find people that you can just be fantastically quirky, wonderful and weird with, but also share common barriers, symptoms and kind of struggles, it's such an incredible experience when you find people like you, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I can't say it hasn't come with some negative aspects being online. I mean, I've you probably know, you get some horrible comments, you get people doubting your diagnosis, which I don't know if it happens to anyone else, but when someone else says, oh, well, that doesn't sound like ADHD, or that's not autistic, like, it makes me always like question my diagnosis. So from that aspect, it's been quite hard. But other than that, like, just knowing that I can, this is my new bedroom, right? This is a whole thing. I was so ashamed to admit that I wasn't able to sleep in my own room. Like, I literally it's been 4 days and I've just cracked it now. I've been sleeping in my parents' bedroom for the past 26 years. I've never ever been able to sleep in a room away from them. But reaching out and speaking about that on my Instagram, I've never ever felt so supported in my life. Like, the amount of people that were like, you're not alone, you're not alone. I thought I was the only one. I was so embarrassed. when I just happened to mention it, like so many people were like, oh my God, I do that too. So like that sense of belonging and like togetherness is something that I don't think you can't even explain it. It's just incredible.
And I think it's when you show people the reality and the truth, because the truth and the reality is, like, that's probably been your safe space for years, and we are creatures of habits. We love routines. We settle with consistency. So for you, that's been something that's there forever. And it's not like one thing that you realise when you start talking is nothing is just a you thing. There's always going to be people out there who share similar experience. And like, firstly, hats off to you for cracking that, because that's a massive jump. Like, to neurotypicals or somebody else might think, well, that's something I do, but to change a routine and structure and comfort of 26 years.
I know. Like, it's not been easy, but it's something that I felt in my heart that I needed to do. You know, it was a step that I felt like I was ready to do, and that only really came about 6 months ago. And I had this, like, we had this bedroom built onto my house, because I've never been ready to have my own bedroom. So like I've always shared with my sister, like growing up. So I've never been ready to take that step, but well, yeah, I did, and I need it done, and I done it, and I'm so proud of myself. That step, like you say, is huge. Yeah.
And on the flip side as well, there may be parents who are listening to this who have neurodivergent children who are similar to you, and actually knowing that there is that kind of, not, I don't know if hope's the right word, but like looking at you taking that step and challenging yourself and pushing you out the boundary. It's a time thing, and when people are ready, they will take that jump. But it gives that little bit of kind of hope that it can happen, and people can flourish as well.
Yeah, I think because like I've had so many like parents reach out to me. Obviously, I'm not going to like talk about specific things, but I've had so many parents reach out to me and just say like, "Oh my God, I thought this was just my son," or I just thought it was like there was someone not so far off my age that also struggled from it, and she was like, "My son now feels, encouraged, empowered to take that step." So I was like, "Oh my God, if I can do that, then I can take on the world." You know, like I felt like I'd done what I always wanted to do online, and that was to help other people like me, and I feel like I've done it now. I don't know if that makes sense, but I felt like I'd done it.
It absolutely does, and there's something like some people will go to me, "Why do you share so much online?" And there's two reasons. First one is to connect and try, and if somebody else sees it and goes, "Oh my God, I feel like that, I don't feel alone," then for me that's amazing. If then I connect with somebody that also experiences that, it helps me as well. I get so much from the app as much as I put in, and I think it's through that being authentic and honest and transparent that really can help that.
Yeah, and I think that's where I don't follow a lot of like neurodivergent content creators. There's only a few, like a handful that I actually follow, because I feel like a lot of the time there are a lot of people that just try to make it a trend. Like, I know it's very, very controversial to say, and I don't, my opinion, I don't find it a superpower. I don't, and I find it can be kind of pushed on me to talk about it as a superpower. But for me, it's I was kicked out of school, I was excluded regularly. Like, my life, I feel like would be totally, like, it'd be better if I didn't have it. So like I try my hardest sometimes to like just remind people that everyone's journey is their own, but being on social media, it can be a very black and white kind of, this is right, that's wrong. And I feel like people like us, we might not have the same opinion, but we can share our experience, and it shows people, although ADHD isn't known as like a spectrum, it definitely is a spectrum. Everyone has a whole different experience, and I find that by us sharing it, that just proves to people that it's just like, wow, that's actually, it gives people an opportunity to see them represented.
I found that early on. So I was only diagnosed April last year, and I've worked in education for nearly 20 years. I've been a teacher, I've worked with SEND kids, I've worked with neurodivergent kids, and I never knew what it actually was. I just knew that I somehow had the ability to work and support these kids really well. And then when I first lent into TikTok, the biggest thing for me was if I saw something that I didn't relate to, I perceived it as something that lessened my ADHD or lessened my autism, and like it made it, oh, it's not quite as bad and whatnot. And I think the biggest change in my mindset was the acceptance of it's this ball pit of symptoms, and everybody's in the same ball pit, but we're all grabbing different ones. We might get the same one, we might get different ones, but collectively we are this neurodivergent ball pit. And actually, our differences and our similarities are what will connect us and also stand us apart, because we're not just going to be the same people just because we're neurodivergent. We're all individual humans before any of that.
That's it, and I think that's what sets us, like people like us, apart, because we are truly representing what it's like. There are like I say, I'm not bashing other people, but there are some content creators that just make it very one-sided and they don't show that what it can be for other people. And that's why I really like your style of video, because you share all different styles of people's kind of like experiences, not just one type.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
And it doesn't go without a shade. Like some, like I get people who go that who suggest that my content's clickbait, and for me, like the people that know me personally, like I've made some like life friends from this app who've seen me, met me in life and stuff. They see the light and shade, they see the up and down, they see the showman. Like I'm an events person. I do shows and stuff off this app, so I can put on that showman and mask straight away. But sometimes I just drop it, and I think some people struggle with me being up there 1 minute and down there the next or whatnot. But I think as you get older and as you get more comfortable in your skin, your skin gets thicker. And I think it's definitely an age thing. I think if I'd have done what I'm doing now 5-6 years ago, it would have impacted me so much more. I'm 36 now, and I see things so differently. But you can never win. And I think the main thing is return to what your why is. That's what I always say. If you know what your why is and what your intention is, as long as you go back there with everything that you do, then no one can ever question it. And just block them all. Block the trolls, block them off.
I know, Christ, I must have a block list like so long.
I love it. So how did ADHD come about for you? So ADHD was the first thing for you. You mentioned earlier that like growing up and stuff, you didn't really have much of a social circle. You wasn't really someone with friends and stuff like that. How was school and growing up for you?
Well, it didn't. When I was growing up, it wasn't really until secondary school that it became apparent to me. All throughout, like infant school, my parents, when I've spoken to them, they've said it was very much there. But because I was their first child, to them they were just told it's normal, so they kind of just let me kind of like move on, just like, come on then, let's just go. But when I got to secondary school, I don't know what happened. I don't know what it was, but something just hit the fan and everything changed. Like my behaviour was, I don't think it's the right word, but it was volatile behaviour. Like it wasn't just walking up and getting out of the class. It was squaring up to teachers. It wasn't nice behaviour. Like the word naughty is the way that I was described. It's just naughty and a delinquent. That's what I was called by every teacher that I had.
Quite erratic and impulsive and reactive behaviour.
Very reactive, and because I was undiagnosed, I think the teachers didn't know how to help, and they almost kind of enraged me and made that reactive behaviour something that I craved. It was like the only thing that was stimulating me at school, because the work wasn't. I wasn't bothered by work. I didn't care about the homework. I had no kind of desire to be a doctor. So to me, it was like, why do I need to do any of that? Like I couldn't see past that, and ultimately, I was put in a pupil referral unit in year 10, and I had to take my exams early because they said they want me to at least try to leave school with 1 GCSE, because they said if I don't, that's my life ruined. But they put me in a pupil referral unit, and that is where I thrived. That I went literally, my grades went sky high. because I was given one-to-one, you know, I was given that, I guess it's kind of attention that I needed. I needed that one-to-one where it was like I could just say that I was struggling with maths and I wouldn't be embarrassed to say that. Like, I could say, I'm not understanding, can you explain to me another way? And I didn't have the whole classroom of people staring at me, or like I didn't feel
you had almost like a coach with you rather than a teacher. And I think even though I've worked in education for years, I think it's crazy that I ended up there, because I similarly was in trouble a hell of a lot at school. I was kicked out, and I accidentally ended up working education, but the biggest thing that I took into it was, like, I never played the teacher, because the teacher was positioned here and the pupil was there, and I always knew I hated it. So I always used to go like, I'm here to coach you, I'm here to mentor you. And if I'd have had that language and that difference of kind of hierarchy, I'd have responded better. And it sounds like that's exactly what happened to you when you went.
Yeah, I mean, sorry.
No, go for it.
I was diagnosed with obviously with ADHD, but also with an ODD profile. But I wasn't aware that you could outgrow that. So when she told me, I was like, oh, that's not me. That's definitely not me. Like, when I was 21, I wouldn't say boo to a goose when I was 21. My whole personality had changed. I'd never be argumentative or like anything like that to someone with authority. I'd be like, I'd step back and let someone else do the confrontation. So I'd done like a 360.
ODD, oppositional defiance disorder, isn't it?
Yeah. It's very much the same as PDA, like pathological demand avoidance, but obviously the profiles are different, and the reasons for the child reacting, or like the person reacting like that, is the reasons are different. And I'm not a doctor, so I haven't got a clue what the reasons are, but mine fits the ODD and not the PDA. So yeah, I'm very thankful. I think
it links to the drivers and the triggers. I think it depends where it sits on the scale or where it's positioned. I think it's to do with the drivers and the triggers and what causes that reaction.
Right.
Because
sorry.
No, please don't. This is your pod. Like, go for it. What was you going to say? Sorry.
No, I was going to say, like, once I was in assembly at school and I was called out with a bunch of there's about 5 or 6 children. Our names were called out, and I was thinking, why? I am never called up to the front of assembly. Like, oh, what have I done? Well, I was pointed out by the teachers and told that I was one of the 5 reasons the school had a bad Ofsted. We were taken from the seats, put in front of the school, and said, you lot are going to fail because of these 4 or 5 people. You know, that's how hard school was for me, and that's why I create all the content I do, and I go into schools and do my talking, because that needs to change. That should never ever have happened. And that was the day that I squared up to, like, one of the teachers now I personally speak to on a personal basis. That was the day that it all kicked off, and it was like, there's something kind of not wrong, but I felt in my heart like there's something wrong here. Like, what's happening? Why is it just me? I felt very like, I don't know, that was a time, I think, where my heart was telling me, like, it's time now to accept that there's something, not right with you. And I feel like that just sat on my shoulders for a few years, and I've just become angry because I felt like I don't know, I just felt,
you were shamed. I just felt broken. You were shamed, and as an educator, I'm sorry that a professional did that. That's disgusting, because ultimately the reason there were problems with Ofsted is because they didn't know how to effectively support and teach young people with needs. So if you stood out like a sore thumb when Ofsted were there, it's because their practices were piss poor, and they didn't have teachers who were there to support your needs as a pupil. They took you on their books. They were getting the money for you. They should have supported you. Got a bit ranty then, but that's for you. That's really angered me. And as an educator, that's angered me, because no child should ever be used as cannon fodder and ammunition for other people's, because the day they did that to you, they set you up to fail with your peers, and that's disgusting.
No, it is. I another reason kind of thing that I'm so like this for. I like to. For me, I'm very passionate about education. That's my thing. Like, I think it's because I was hurt and traumatized by it. So I want to try to protect as many kids as possible. But like, I left school 10 years ago, and I'm still pissing teachers off. I'm still doing it, and I have great pride in that. Like, then I sit back and I read them comments, and they're from teachers like don't get me wrong, there are some incredible teachers. I know that, I've got some really great people on like TikTok that I follow that are incredible. They're truly passionate about inclusive education. But there are just some teachers that just don't understand that they are children. You are there to teach them. You're not there to shame them. You're not there to like pick on them. You are there to teach them. And there's a difference. And that's why I stand up, because I can't stand the fact that there are still teachers out there who believe that people like us shouldn't be in mainstream school, when actually we can be in mainstream school. We don't need to be separated, because we can. We just need the support. We can, and we shouldn't be denied education just because we might be hard to handle. It's wrong. It's wrong on every level.
Are you on headphones by any chance, Molly?
No.
There's a bit of a... Can anyone else hear that crackle? Oh, there you go. That's cool. So, with you then, what were your main traits for ADHD, and how did it come about, you getting diagnosed?
So, the last straw for me was I was at college, and I was kicked out of college at 18. I was kicked out. I wanted to be a police dog handler. I was studying that, and I got kicked out. And that was when I said to my mum, I went home and I said, Mum, there's something wrong with me. And my mum and dad, they love me. So, they were like, we've been waiting for this day for you to come to us and say, let's move forward. I always kind of knew, and my parents always knew, but because I wanted to be a policewoman, you go back 5-6 years, ADHD was not as well known as it is. And having ADHD was, you weren't going to get into the police. You weren't going to get into these things if you had that label. It was, that's just how it was seen. And my parents have always said they never wanted to ruin my chances of following my dreams and chasing them. So, yeah, I don't hold it against my parents at all. What they've done is incredible for me. But I was at college, and I just said, Mum, there's something wrong. And she said, yeah, I think there might be. It was, my moods were volatile. They would switch completely. Like, my parents would describe it as walking on eggshells all the time. Anything could set me off. And me and my younger sister have only now started to develop a relationship, because my sister was scared of me. She didn't want anything to do with me because I was so unpredictable. She couldn't predict, like, if Molly was going to shout at me, if Molly's going to behave me nicely, if Molly's going to get angry. Things were just very hard in my household. I would only settle, like I say, with my mum and my dad and my nan and granddad. There was no one else I'd settle with. So my parents could never leave me or go out. So they had no social life. Literally, like, they don't do anything now because they worry about me. But like, growing up, it was very Molly, 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 Molly. And my younger sister didn't get a look in, really, because it was just like, I needed all of that attention because everything about me was so intense. Like, even little things were just blown out of proportion because I would just get angry. Like the sleep was one of the main things. I couldn't go to sleep. I had sleep therapists, I went to counsellors, people, and they just told me there was nothing, they just said, oh, there's nothing, she'll grow out of it. I think I was just masking from a very young age. I was just very aware that I needed to be what people wanted me to be.
And do you think as well you slipped under the radar because you were a girl?
Because, 100%. 100%.
Because it's
when I was at school, there was like
recent years that they've started to take seriously that actually this isn't a gender thing, this is a human thing. And so many girls were mistaken. And arguably, if we're looking at old stereotypes, and it's really strange because talking to you, in my head, I'm going, oh my God, you remind me so much of this student that I worked with.
Yeah.
Because it was like such a similar story that because she didn't fit into the girl mode or didn't fit into the ADHD because she was just considered this disruptive person, but put in a place where she was set to thrive. She did amazing things, and yeah, it just shows it's possible.
I think it is. I mean, I've been to the doctors like a few times before about like anxiety before the diagnosis itself. I went about all different aspects, you know, mood, stuff like that. My mum has bipolar, so that was thrown in the mix as well. So it was just like maybe it was bipolar, but that was never followed through. Nothing was ever, you know, followed through. But when I mentioned ADHD to the doctor, she was like, "Oh yeah, that could be a possibility." But you know, usually we don't diagnose adults. And she said, I'll see what my clinician manager can say. And me and my mum were like, what? You have to ask permission for me just to be like assessed. And she was like, yeah, no, we don't really do it for adults. It's mainly for kids. And we were like, okay. But she come back, thankfully, you know, they done it. But I was on the waiting list for 3 years coming up. And then I just paid private in the end because I was basically going to be sacked from the job that I was in because of my attendance and all my other stuff. I was being bullied, but I was being blamed because I wasn't putting myself out there enough. So I was making the bullying happen. Yeah, it was just, everything was coming to head and I needed help. And I paid private, and the doctor said I was actually one of the worst ADHD females that she had ever seen and ever treated. So she said the only option really is medication. And that was when I was like, oh no, I don't want that. No, I went in dead against it. I was like, never. I'm one that doesn't even take paracetamol, so I was like, no, you're not getting me anything medication. But sitting back and talking to the lady, I was like, actually, I need a better quality of life for myself and for my family, and that was a decision I made. And honestly, it's been life changing. I would never go back ever. But yeah,
because you're on and is it 70 milligrams Elvance that you take?
Yeah.
I'm thinking back to a video I saw when you were showing the thing. I was like, did it say 70 on it?
Yes.
And how has that changed things for you? So how long have you been taking the medication?
5 years. Since my diagnosis, literally about 3 or 4 days after my diagnosis, I started it. But obviously, I don't know what that word is. Is it titration? Whatever it's called? That's it. Yeah, that's it. I started that. I started at 30, and then obviously I got to 50 and was on that for about 2.5 years, but it kind of wasn't enough. And you know, I spoke to the doctor, and she was like, "Yeah, let's whack it up to 17," and that's been just what I needed, along with my sertraline. So at the moment, I'm in a really good place, like mentally, with everything. Yeah, so it's crazy.
No, and I think that's the thing that is so misunderstood about the medical. Like, I'm not on medication yet. I'm waiting to start titration, and I'm chomping at the bit for it because there are so many things of me that I can mask and I can put forward and that. But I'm at the point where I'm just like, what could I achieve if I was leveled a little bit, and if I had the ability to just kind of call response or action and do. Because it's not every single day. Some days are worse than others, but some days are just horrendous. And it's like, I've just got to write today off, probably tomorrow as well. And there's nothing I can do. I hate that feeling.
No, I can relate to that. Some days I'll even forget that I'm autistic and have ADHD. Like, there'll be days where it's just fine. Nothing, you know, nothing bothers me. I can just thrive. But other days, like you say, it knocks you for 6, and then you're out for about a week trying to recover.
And with that then, so you went through private. Did you manage to get shared care or anything like that?
Yeah, I was very, very lucky with that. I saw the same like GP for quite a long time, and I managed to get in with her, and she was able to put me on shared care. But it wasn't without a fight because, you know, first of all, it was declined. And we had to keep going back, but thankfully, yeah, I was. Yeah, I'm very fortunate.
It's a ridiculous expense, and that's the only reason I haven't gone. So I paid for a private diagnosis and then got diagnosed by Right to Choose. And the only reason I didn't pay for medication was I knew if I tried something and it changed everything for me, that the way in which I've got a very addictive personality, and I'd be craving that. And if ever I couldn't have afforded it, in my head I just knew it would have done more harm than good. So I thought, let's wait it out. But similarly to yourself, like through the ADHD, I found autism, and that sounds like that was pretty much your journey a few years later as well.
Oh, honestly, I think when I was like being diagnosed, after you talk about it all, don't you? And they start to like tell you, oh, this is why I believe you got an ADHD, it's why I'm diagnosing you. But she also said you have a lot of autistic traits. And at that time, I mean, I have spoken about it before, so it could be a bit boring for people that actually know me, but kind of like, at the time I wasn't in the right headspace. I was like, I don't believe that I'm autistic. I can't see it in myself. I was very uneducated. I had no knowledge of really what autism is. I had a very kind of black and white thinking of what autism is. And
autistic view of autism.
That's it.
We have a very autistic view of autism. I resonate with that so much.
Yeah, it wasn't me. I was like, nope, I can't identify that. I'll pick it up again if I need to, basically. Literally about 3 or 4 weeks after that medication, I was like, yeah, I can see where that doctor's coming from. Because my ADHD was like tamed, it was in that cage, and the autism was like able to come to the front of the stage, and it did. Like, trust me, it did. All my sensory, I didn't realise how addicted I am to like routine. Like, I'd never known. I just thought it was because I was being very rigid, as in like ADHD. Like, if I want to do something, I want to do it now.
And you want things your own way, your way or nothing else. You're stubborn. You don't think of anything. Those things that we're told actually start to make sense, because sometimes you haven't got the words to explain it. And I think one thing about getting diagnosed for me, it was I had the words to explain things I never before knew how to explain. And I never
exactly. When people like, I'm often asked like, why did I want to get diagnosed, or like kind of like, why did you want to label yourself? But I don't see it as a label. I see it as literally an explanation that changed my life. Like, it's something that I can just, I have ADHD, and it might come across as an excuse, but I'm not. I'm just telling you that is why I'm struggling in this situation. Like, making friends. If I could go back now and think about all the times that I had these big friendship fallouts, I could just stand and say, do you know what? I'm autistic and I have ADHD. I'm really struggling with the fact that you have other friends, because I feel like hyper focused on you. Like, there's so many things I wish I could go back and say to these, like, friends, the old past friends, but I can see how much I struggled just by having that diagnosis. Yeah, it just makes a lot of things make sense.
And how has that helped you with like relationships and friendships as you've got older? Have you been able to put yourself in a space where you feel more comfortable building friendships up and relationships and whatnot?
Relationships, I'm not there yet. Like, I've always, like I say, with the sleeping thing in the bedroom, like my parents, it's always been something that I've just been ashamed of. So that I haven't even considered yet. But friendships, I don't really talk about this one online a lot, because it's something that I kind of like, but I will talk to you because I think it's really important. I do have a best friend. I do have one, and that is only from the past 2 or 3 years, actually. And I try to keep it off of social media, because if this friend were to like disappear, it'd break my heart, and I don't want to put that out there in it. Like, like when you talk about things and all of a sudden everything goes wrong, and then you're like embarrassed to talk about it again. But yeah, I do have one really good friend.
To have those special people and them selected people that just that they ground you, you feel comfortable with, and you can be authentic with.
That's it. And like, it was so close now that she had a baby, and she like got to choose the C-section date, and she held it until my birthday. So she had a baby on my birthday, and yeah. Honestly, I treat him like a nephew. But yeah, it's changed my life having a friend. And I've always desired that kind of like Hannah Montana and that Lily friendship off of Disney. I've always wanted that friendship that I grew up watching. But I never had it. And it broke my heart. But I feel like I've got it now. And I'm too scared to talk about it in case I lose it. But that's how much I treasure a friendship. It's like above everything else.
No, well, like, you deserve that friendship,
Thank
and
you.
they deserve you as well. Like, I'm so glad you've got to experience what it feels like, that somebody who just loves you for you, because that's important for all of us. And
That's it. And I think that's what shocked me the most, really, was the fact that I didn't have to mask, and I never have. And I never felt like I needed to either. And I feel like that's because she's my hairdresser as well. So it's like it was a natural friendship that just blossomed into something more than a hairdresser. So yeah, I feel like, you know, when people say things come to you when you least expect it, I never believed that. I was like, oh, whatever. But it does actually come to you.
maybe you were ready for a friendship as well then.
Do you know what? That's what I think happened. Like after the diagnosis, I think I learned to accept myself, and then I was open to letting other people accept me. But it was like a journey that I feel like I had to go on. And like now, I feel like I hate the word journey. It's such a it's such a cliche word, but
I think
I feel like all
we
of us
hate that word, and I think actually there's no better word to describe it. I think everybody does this thing, and I do it myself. Where you go, oh, cliche journey. There's no better. I can't think of a better word to describe it. So I think we should just be like, yeah, journey. That's exactly what it is.
yeah. Well, it is a journey, and I feel like it's one that I wouldn't want to change. As much as I don't like ADHD and I don't like having autism, if I get rid of it, I wouldn't do it, because I feel like all of my struggles have like a reason, and I feel like creating content is that reason, because I needed to go through it to help others. That's kind of the way that I got through it.
And I think like where I've settled is, it's like, do I like ADHD and autism? I don't like them. I don't massively dislike them. But where I'm at now is I quite like me as a person, and that they're part of it. So that's how I've tried to help. Like, I'm still struggling with the autism side. Like, I've done some content recently, like accepting something that my brain is never going to be different. Like ADHD, you can amend it. Autism, you can't. And I feel like I'm still working on that. But the difference is I quite like who I am presenting myself as now, whereas before I was everybody else's version of me.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know if you saw the video I made about. I kind of described it as like every person that I met had a different version of me. Nobody knew the same Molly. I literally copy and paste whoever people want me to be, and I just become that person. I'm like a social chameleon. Like I just become that person. And I feel like online, I don't have to be that. Like when you're making videos, creating content, you don't have to do that. You can edit it, but you're in control of what people see. And if people don't like it, they don't have to watch it. And that's kind of what I've had to learn. It was hard because it's like, I know full well people don't like me. I get people say things all the time. I've had to block some big creators because they want a competition, you know? And it's not. I'm not here for that. I'm not here. I don't care if I make money or not. I don't care. I'm here just because, for the same reason you are. We're passionate about sharing our journey. It's because other people are going to go through it and they might not have the support I'm very, very privileged to have. I never, and I'm not shy to admit that I'm a very privileged person, as in like I was able to pay for a diagnosis. You know, I'm white for it, you know, and I have so much more than a lot of people do. And sometimes, you know, I take it for granted, and I think everybody does, but I feel like sometimes you just need to, I've had to learn.
It's important to ground yourself and humble yourself based on what you have got. But I'm a firm believer as well that every individual only experiences their own experience, and no one else around it will experience something as the individual. So actually, everybody's biggest problem is the biggest problem that I ever have, and nobody else can draw away from that. Because if we measure it, what scale are we using? Because ultimately it's the impact on us. And I think like the one thing in relation to like TikTok and creators and stuff like that is just like if you think something, ask the person. That's been the biggest growth part for me, is if I feel something that's niggling me, do one or two things: remove yourself or ask the person to qualify it. Because I've learned that my brain, when I'm feeling a certain way, or maybe if I'm RSDing a bit, or if I'm feeling not my full self, I can magnify things. And it might have been a small thing that's triggered it, but because of what chair I was sitting in, it magnified. And I think what I've found so beneficial is going to people and just going, this is my thought. It may not be true, but I just wanted to place it there. Them being neurodivergent, you'd hope that they would approach it with an empathetic side as well. You don't have to, definitely. But like, if ever there was a safe space to do it, it's with somebody you're about to block. like you've got nothing to lose.
No, I honestly, like, I don't know if I spoke to you about it. Maybe I did. Can't remember. But there was I was really close with a real big creator on TikTok and Instagram. We were really, like I said, I'm not friends, acquaintances. We spoke on the regular. I had to block her. I had to, because I was constantly comparing myself to her content and it was making me feel inadequate. And I did reach out, and maybe I could have handled it a bit better. Maybe I could, maybe I didn't think of other people's feelings. She wasn't happy. But ultimately, I had to do it for me. And I've learned that my own need, like, kind of like, self-care isn't selfish, and prioritising Molly is not selfish. And I've had to kind of learn that.
Absolutely.
And it's hard.
I think that's the important thing. You go, like, how is this serving me? Is it beneficial to me? And actually playing your own game and playing your own drum is what's the most important. Do things that authentically feel right to you and make you feel good. I truly think that's something that is so important. So with the social media and things like that, so you do content on here, I see you on Facebook, you're quite prevalent across a lot of platforms, but you're doing your own little what's the word I'm looking for, kind of self-driven, self-funded project, which I think is fantastic. Like, I'm fascinated by it. What's the project that you're doing? I've seen some clips that you've shared from it as well.
Yeah, so it's a solo documentary that I'm doing, purely based on my own personal experience. So I have a YouTube channel that I create, like, obviously YouTube videos, talk about everything that's taboo about ADHD, like sex, relationship. I talk about it all. And I thought, why not actually make a documentary about my life before? So it's called Before It Made Sense. So before my diagnosis, before it all made sense. And I'm focusing purely on school, just education itself. I'm focusing purely on that because, like I say, it's a huge passion of mine, and it was something that traumatized me. And I feel like I'm aiming to go back to my old schools and like interview my old teachers. So one of them is one of the ones that was the deputy head, so we were clashing heads a lot. But now I speak to her on a personal level, and she's actually a character in my book. I've drawn her in my published book. She's a character in there, and we've managed to, like, connect on a personal level, and we're able to now, like, I don't know, like, speak about the past, and it's really empowered me, because it's like, do you know what? If a lot of teachers could learn that behind all behaviour is a form of, like, behaviour is a form of communication, that's my main goal. So I'm pushing that. I'm going to, like, speak to all my teachers, hoping to go back to my old, like, schools, my old stomping grounds, and just ask teachers questions about ADHD, like, could they see it in me, like, now, and if we talk about it, can you see these traits now? That's what I'm just, I'm working on that type of thing.
Yeah, no, and I again, I resonate with that experience, because I went from disliking education to then working in education. I'm still in contact with some of my old teachers, and, like, since I found out they've gone, knowing what we know now, we can see a mile off. What we knew then, it wasn't evident. because all they were told was actually it was the kids in the unit, the ones that were kicking off, the boys that were smashing up classrooms, putting holes in the walls. And I was never that. I mean, don't get me wrong, like my knuckles in my hands are down here because I couldn't punch properly, so I never put an hole in the wall. I just broke my hands. That was ultimately all that happened to me.
No, I totally get it. Yeah.
And what are your hopes with that project? Is it to create that connection and get people to relate and understand and things?
Well, I have some connections at the BBC. No big, I've got a good friend who's a producer, and I'm aiming to hopefully like pitch it to some media because I feel like it needs to be pushed out there.
That'd be amazing.
I don't want to be big-headed, but I'm quite good at editing, and I'm quite good at like finding a storyline and stuff. And basically, documentary type things are my thing. So I really want to push it out there as much as possible because I feel like, I don't know, there's a message in there, and at this precise moment in time, I don't know what that message is. I know what I want, but at the moment, it's just trying to get all of that out of my head and into one thing.
But I think
there's
that's
a message somewhere.
A very ADHD way to have all these, like, people will go, how on earth have you got there so quickly? And for me, I've got small fragments of so much going on around here. And then all of a sudden, I'll just go, okay, bring it together. And it will just go, and then all of a sudden it makes sense, but it never would out here. And I think the whole creative process, I love it. And I think that will be how it will unfold. As you step a foot into those different areas you want to explore, I think you'll start to see the next chapter and how it looks and what it goes, and this is where this fits and that fits. That's exciting, isn't it? I love that.
That's what I like about the whole kind of documentation thing, because it's like, I know, like I say, I know what I want, but actually I go in and I don't actually have a clue what I want, so I just wing it, and that's how I best perform, is just by winging things. And I go in and I seem to, like, I don't know, from out of nowhere I get this confidence to ask questions and to do stuff. So I try not to plan stuff because it's like, that puts me on edge, and I'm like, oh no, I don't think that's the right question. But when I'm in there, I'm just like, I turn into like Susanna Reid or something, and I'm just like, come on, let's talk. I just transform. But there's never really, I don't know what I'm going in to do. I just do it, and then I'm like, wow, yeah.
It's when you see something in yourself that's strong and you're good at, and I think that's the thing, like, to find something you find validating and empowering when for years you've been told everything you're not particularly strong at. When you find something you are, it feels so good. Like
it does. Yeah.
I think that's why it holds so much importance to people as well, to do what they want to do, to be creative. Like yourself, like I've seen some of your posts around, like, this is the space I want to be in, this is what I want to do. I've seen you were doing, did you do some, were you on one of the panels at one of the conventions, or is that something that's coming up as well?
What was that one? I've done so much with...
I saw a post and you were on like a panel of neurodivergent people.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I can't remember what it was called now, but yeah, I was on a panel... I can't remember what it's called. But yeah, I was on a panel, we were speaking about kind of ADHD in all different aspects of life. So like there, we were met with people who were non-binary, like all different genders, and yeah, we just discussed how it could portray and kind of like manifest on different people, if that makes sense. Yeah, it was really good actually. It's not something I really would want to do again, because I feel like public speaking is not my thing. And when I was the one hosting, was like, oh my god. But yeah, I find it very kind of daunting to do that, but because I'm not in control, that's what I don't like. It's not my gig, so I'm like, I don't want to mess it up for anybody else. But yeah, it was good.
But if something makes you go, that's probably where you should push yourself.
I've learned that. I have had to learn that,
because I think that's what masking and unmasking is, in this most simplest form. To us neurodivergents, if something makes us go, oh, that's uncomfortable, it's probably because we've dropped the mask a little bit and it's something we're not familiar with. And as long as it's safe, lean into it, give it a go, because actually you might like the version of you see in that space, but it's just getting so many habits of just running away from it and closing off because we don't like that feeling.
That's it. I think we're also taught as well, like, to like keep things kind of simple and not dream big. I don't know if you were, but like I was always kind of told, like, you know, like boys wanted to be footballers. It was almost like, oh yeah, well, you're never going to do that. Just, you know, and I was just growing up in that kind of environment where you were never going to be the next kind of, like, I don't know, just big singer. You're never going to do that because it wouldn't happen to you. You know, you're not talented enough. And I feel like I've always had to keep my dreams kind of really small. But since like being diagnosed, it's opened so many opportunities, and I'm now able to be like, do I want to do that? And I've tried things that are really like, I mean, I'd never ever do again. Like, I mean, there's some things I'm like, never, like, no. But there are, I've opened up new kind of skills.
It's informed at that point, isn't it? At the point you've done it and you can go, absolutely not. You've made that decision. No one's taking it from you.
That's it. And I feel like, I don't know, I think it's really healthy to like try new things. And like, if I could look back on the younger Molly, that would be what I'd really push her to do. It'd be like, take those opportunities and run with them. Don't be scared of other people's opinions. Just do it. Don't worry about if you're good or not. Like, who cares? Just try it. But it does take time though, and I feel like you have to have that. I think you've got to be in the right mindset. You've got to be willing and open to these things. Otherwise, you're just going in and you're kind of expecting yourself to fail, so you don't enjoy it.
Yeah, no, I understand that totally. And what's in the plans for Molly? So what does the future look like for you? What do you hope from it? Have you got any exciting things coming up?
For me, it's more. I'm writing another book. I'm doing a children's survival guide for school. I've been trying to do that for about a year, and yeah, that's one thing I'm working on. Obviously, the documentary, and it's just really like pushing my YouTube. I really, like I said, video thing is my thing. I love creating video content, so I want to try and work with other creators, and like I want to kind of do like a youth thing, like come up with like a youth hub. That, I don't know, there's just so much I want to do, but I want to work with kids. That's kind of where I want to go. I want to go into schools and come up with like, you know, like when you go in, I don't know what they're called. People can go in and just go in like not mentor. It's more like do activities with specific kids on the verge of being excluded or something like that.
I'm very well connected in education in the Midlands area.
Okay.
Like, if you had ideas that you were interested in trialing and stuff like that, or anything like that, just like, you've got my number now. Like, don't be a stranger after here at all. Like,
oh no, definitely not. No, you'll have to come onto my YouTube channel next.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, because I've done 20 years in education, and I'm trying to do some work within, because I work with 16 plus further education. My brother works in high schools, and I think there's a huge gap for training of educators around it, because I think the classroom environment could be so much better, but then there's also a huge gap of the understanding for the young people, because CAMs aren't seeing these young people. They're not getting to them on time. There's nobody that is mentoring and helping them to understand what their emotion really is.
That's it, yeah.
There's so much work to be done. And that's exciting. Like, preps to you for that, because that is taking your negative experience and potentially putting yourself in a place that could be quite triggering for you, but for the greater good, and I love that. Yeah,
I feel like people like me and you are the best people to do it. Because if you're going to get someone to talk about something, you want someone who's actually been through it. Like, I can't stand it when people, I don't know, like there's people talk about stuff and you just think, well, how do you know? Like, you've not experienced that. Like, how do you know that? And I feel like if you're going to go speak to kids about it, they're going to only really connect with people that they know go through it. Because I would not have listened to somebody who had come from like a church and was preaching to me about something, and I'd be like, but you've never been naughty, have you? Because you're a priest. I wouldn't see it like that. I would see it very like, well, you're a good person and I'm a bad person. So why are you here telling me that I'm going to be able to do all these things if you've never been through it. And that's how I thought.
I think it mirrors why ex-offenders are the best rehabilitation people and ex-users are the best counsellors when it comes to substance and alcohol, because it's not from the book, it's from the heart. And I think that is how people learn, and that's how people connect, when it's from a place of passion and not. There are people that are academic and will learn things and will learn from people's experiences to enable them to do it, and they're fantastic. There's nothing better than that relatability, is there?
No, definitely for me. I mean, I know that I resonate more with people who have, like, I know who've gone through it, or at least have an understanding of it. Like, I know for, like, parents that reach out to me and they're like, oh, I want to speak to the teacher, but how do I approach this thing? And I'm not a teacher, I'm not an expert. Like, I'm only an expert in my own experience. I don't have a degree in anything apart from living a roller coaster of a life. You know, that's the only way that I can help you. And just by giving people that advice from my life, you know, they've gone on to get that diagnosis that they've been fighting for years, just purely because they're using my graphs that my infographics that I've you know, created. And who would have known? Like, I would have not have thought that would have been something I created, because I didn't, you know.
I saw the one you did earlier, and it was, you think ADHD is this, but in fact it's this, and it was square and it was broken down. There was a circle and all that. And I was like, that is such like a good visual. Like, I looked at it and it looked like it was effective. And because my brain could just look at one section, like if it was, and it's weird with mind maps, unless there's clear blocks between them, my head just goes blah, 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 blah. But if it's in a section and a different colour, my brain can almost, and I was like, yes, I'm here for it.
No, that's it. And that's how, I mean, there are some of my infographics that are not created for neurodivergent people. They are not created. They're just colourful, you know, very busy, but they're more for going on a wall and being a poster to educate people, as in like teachers or parents. They're not aimed for neurodivergence, but there are some of them I've created purely for people like us that do need it to be chilled, two separate colours, so that it's like dominant on this is that and that's that, separate. Great. But yeah, that's my brain. I'm very visual. Like, I need things broken down and made into very distinctive sections. That's how my brain works too.
Yeah. No, well, it worked for me. It absolutely did.
Good.
So we're getting ever close to 9, and the last question I normally ask all guests is, if you could go back and have a conversation or give a message to your younger self, knowing what you know now, what would it be and why?
I think it literally would just be say yes to all the opportunities that you're presented with, because like I say, like I feel like I wanted to do Duke of Edinburgh, but I wasn't confident enough to do it at school because I felt like I wasn't good enough, and I wasn't academic enough to read the map, so I was like, no, I'm not doing that. But I really wanted to do it. And I felt that broke my heart a lot for a few years. And I was like, I really wanted to do that. I wish I'd have done it. And I feel like, little Molly, you could have done it. You could have made so many good friendships, because you'll be pushing yourself to the limits out there. People will be vulnerable too. And that's how you make friends. And I wish like I could just go and push her, like, just go and do it. But I would 100% say to myself, say yes to more of the opportunities that you're given. Like, just do it, because you won't regret it.
No, I love that. Well, thank you so much.
It's okay.
For coming on. As I said, you were somebody when I started this that I really wanted to get on, and it's because like I have a passion for younger people understanding things, and I think you're an amazing advocate for a younger person who was late diagnosed, and I love the work that you do. It sits in a space that's important to me, which is children and young people and education, and yeah, I've loved it. So
thank you. It's really lovely. I appreciate that. Thank you.
So for anybody listening who is listening back on the pod, where can they find you on social? So what are your tags and handles?
I think they're all basically just the same. It's just Molly's ADHD Mayhem. So that's on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. That's about it, I think. Yeah. And YouTube.
YouTube channel same?
Yeah, YouTube, exactly the same. Molly's ADHD Mayhem. I think if you just write that, it comes out of all my links on Linktree anyway, somewhere. Yeah, it's somewhere.
Fantastic. Well, yeah, thank you very, very much. And yeah, we can chat off the app anyway, it's fine. But for now, that is the end of episode 6, season 2, Behind the Mask. Thank you very much and take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.